So, welcome everybody. We're very happy to have you this afternoon, or this evening, or this morning, depending on where you connect from. Uh, we usually at On the Move have quite a big outreach and people connecting from all across the globe. So, look, I'm very happy to welcome you for the second free forum webinar dedicated to the international mobility of the young and emerging arts workers, and particularly to the funding programs and the grants that they can access to internationalize their practice. So my name is Johan Flock. I'm the Director of Operation at On the Move. As you know, On the Move is the network dedicated to the international circulation of artists and cultural professionals. We have the chance to gather 85 members from 31 countries, and we are kindly supported in our work by the French Ministry of Culture and the Creative Europe program. Today, I'm together with Claire and Bernardo, two colleagues that will be working from, the backhand and make sure that technically this discussion runs well. So before I start, I just want to briefly describe myself for participants with visual impairment. I'm a white man. I'm wearing blue reading glasses, brown graying hair, and facial hair. And right behind me, you have a white background with a On the Move logo, all in black. We are giving you these quick housekeeping. You can see that my colleagues are posting these suggestions in the chat. We kindly ask you to not put your camera on or your sound on, as we will have start the conversation. But of course, we will open the floor for comments and questions, and you are very welcome to start and continue posting them in the chat during our conversation. So for now, only our panelists and our rapporteur will be having their camera and sounds on. They speak. So look, I'm very happy to have this second webinar. It's a second webinar that is in line or in preparation or fueling the upcoming Cultural Mobility Forum that we will be hosting in Riga, in Latvia, in partnership with NDPC, the Northern Dimension Partnership on Culture, but also in partnership with Riga Circs, who will be hosting us, and Whole Round, that will be live streaming the event. So you can either follow it online or come to Riga and enjoy the conversations on site. So this forum webinar is, of course, addressing the mobility of young and emerging professionals. Last time we had the chance to talk about this very important support scheme under Creative Europe, a European platform supporting emerging professionals. And this time we are going to talk about funding. And we talk about funding together with funders. And we are very happy today to have three organizations that are represented, three important organizations that are providing support to the arts and culture. So let me introduce the three professionals that will be exchanging today with us. So I'm going to start with Laura. Laura Turlaja is working for the Latvian Ministry of Culture. She's the head of the Cultural Policy Department, and she, of course, has an enormous knowledge around policy making and the European support funds and the programs, but also, of course, on the Latvian cultural policy. So we're looking forward to hear from you, Laura. Together with Laura, we have Marta Rincón. Marta is the head of visual arts, architecture and design and she's working for the Spanish agency Acción Española. So Marta is not only working for the agency, but also teaching at the University Complutense of Madrid, among others. And I'm looking forward to asking questions about not only the agency, but also her work together with young art students. And our third panelist today is Ayana Bouchakra. Ayana is working not only as an artist and a playwright, but also as a program manager for Ettijahat. Uh, Ettijahat is an organization, intermediary organization that works across all artistic disciplines and support the Arabic and Arab makers, creatives across the Middle East and across Europe. And we are also going to be asking questions about the support program that Ettijahat has been developing over time. Together with us also today, we have a rapporteur. Rapporteur is a very special role. Is a silent role almost, as we've asked Katrina Duca to join us for the conversation, to listen to all the exchanges, and at the end to give us our main takeaways and in a way to express what was important to her in our conversation. Katrina is an artist, a theatre maker, a researcher. She's based in Latvia, in Riga, and she has been developing many community-based and participatory art projects. She creates performances, and she's currently in Turku to prepare. But otherwise, she's also contributing to Riga Circ, this Riga-based venue, programming and presenting contemporary circus art, but also physical theatre and other live performances. And she's in charge of the international relations of the organization. So we will hear about Katrina more at the very end of this conversation. So to all the panelists, of course, a big thank you for joining this webinar. As I was mentioning to all of you, I have a lot of questions for you because I really want to know more about not only your organization and the programs you've been developing, and especially the ones that are targeting the young artists and the next generation of creatives. But I have also questions on your own personal trajectory in a way. And maybe this is the first question I will ask you is how easy or difficult was it for you as a young and emerging cultural manager or artist and practitioner in the creative field to start your career and to internationalize your career? Was it easy to embrace this international dimension, or was it difficult and you had to fight and struggle to start this European and international journey? So maybe I could start by asking this question to Marta, and then we will see how we go. We need to start somewhere, Marta.
I don't know why I knew you were asking me that. That was how that is why I was laughing. So thank you all for joining us in this conversation. As Johan asked, I'm a white, very young woman. I mean, in our office in ACE, we are based in Madrid, and it's a sunny and amazing day here. I've been, but I'm Basque. I'm from San Sebastian, the north of Spain, and an amazing land that since I was very young, I have this international aim and international mindset in a way. San Sebastian is placed on the border to France, so all my life it's been like about crossing borders, and I didn't really realize that I was moving. That was my mindset in a way. So when I studied, I studied in Madrid. I moved to Madrid, and afterwards afterward to New York. So I don't think that was a difficult moment as curator. I was a curator for a long time, as a curator to work internationally. I would say the problem was to maintain a work in the long term. Now that I'm older, I think there is where I would suggest to focus, not to put the line on the long term program, which is something that we fight a lot and we struggle a lot, me and the team, to maintain long term programs. I don't know if I answered your question, but I was the first one, so.
You answered. No, no, definitely, definitely. Thank you, thank you. And maybe I will ask similar questions to Ayam also, especially because I know you graduated both from Damascus University, but also from Sorbonne University in Paris. So I was wondering if this international dimension was easy or not easy. Tell us.
Yeah, thank you, Johan. I will start to describe myself as you asked me. So I'm early 30 man with a black and white barb, and I'm sitting now in my office at home. So mm, I started to work with Ettijahat since I was in Syria. So, and Ettijahat was in Syria also in 2013. And me and Ettijahat, like we lived the whole experience of Syrian diaspora. Uh, so it was like step by step. I didn't know when I start to work internationally, but it's like really step by step, step by step. And when I arrived here in France in 2014, it was very, very harsh because I didn't speak French at that time. And in French, you have to be francophone to find your place here in France. So I started to learn French, and then I did a master in the Sorbonne of art and culture management. But I keep working with Ettijahat and to support Syrian artists and to work for several programs to support artists in the Arab region, in the Middle East, and lately here in Europe. So to answer you, I don't know exactly when I start to work internationally, but yeah, it was like step by step.
Okay, wonderful, beautiful steps. Maybe Laura, I can ask you the same question in terms of transitioning from studies to professional life, and in particularly this European or international professional life. How was it for you?
Yes, hello everyone. Following Johan's example, I will tell that I'm a white woman in 40s, brown shoulder length hair, in a room with white walls today. But about my experience, yes, I started actually my or the late years of my studies coincided with Latvia joining European Union. So all the new programs were available for us, and I tried to use as much as possible. I was using Erasmus program. I went to study in France, so I totally share what I have just said about language on there. Although I had studied French in Latvia for 12 years before, when I went there, it turned out I don't speak French actually. So yeah, it was very practical obstacle for a while for me. And I also, as being very young at that age, I remember actually more those really practical struggles with everything, with language with solving like everyday life. A bit later on, I started working at the Ministry of Culture, and I started to work exactly with European Union programs. which used to be a EU culture program before, and which is now Creative Europe. And then I realized I want also to grasp this international context a bit. So I applied using there used to be a program, Leonardo program for internship support. So I applied for internship at SICA, which used to be an organization in Amsterdam. I believe it's now called Dutch Culture, maybe, or which works with Dutch international culture affairs. And then already, yeah, I can compare that was different from this very young student in France, that I was already a bit like, would call myself young professional, bit more like concrete, specific interests also in the field, the questions what I want to learn during this internship there. Yeah, also somehow this integration went a bit easier somehow for me. And yeah, then I continue. My career hasn't been international in that way. I haven't stayed there or continued. I came back to Latvia. I had always felt this mission to implement those ideas here, but yeah, somehow I don't know. Maybe I went against the highway in a way that I started. My career started with European Union programs, with EU funds, with international cooperation, and then later I moved to national culture policy, and now I'm more international. So I have been narrowing actually this focus, not like widening as it sometimes happens. But sorry, maybe too long already. Thank you.
No. It's very interesting because in a way you used somehow your international knowledge and fuel that back into the work you do in this institution. What is interesting in your first answers is the place that studies take in the internationalization of your personal life, but also career. And this is something that we observe, of course, very commonly in many young artists and cultural professionals. The studies and this international dimension play a very important role. And I'm glad that during the forum in Riga at the end of the month, we will have the time and space to investigate university and education institutions that will be joining our conversation. When the three of you start mentioning, in a way, the needs, you were somehow comparing your own needs when you were having your first international experience to maybe the ones that you observe today. And maybe this is something I would like straight ahead to jump into. Compared to the needs you could have as a young professionals, or the needs that you observed in 2015, many years ago already, compared to the needs of the young generation today, could you maybe elaborate a little bit on the differences, if you see that there are differences? Could we start with you, Aya, maybe? Yes.
Yeah, as I mentioned, I came here to France, to Europe, during like the huge wave of immigration in 2014, 15, 16. And what we are working right now on the mobility grants project, that we work with the artists from the Arab region who moved to Europe during the last decade. So I remember myself when I just arrived here. I don't speak the language. I don't have connections. I lost all my connections, and I have to understand and to adapt to new society. Maybe the mechanism to doing art and culture. It's completely different from where I came. So this is exactly what we are taking into consideration when we are building right now the ZAD program. So we held several brainstorming sessions with emerging artists from Arab region in Europe to understand their needs. And it's similar to my needs when I came here in 2014. It's mainly the to reconnect and to have networking. Like losing your networking, it's crucial. So. have a network with culture spaces, with other artists, and to reconnect with how it works here in this society and this country.
That's super interesting. Like in a way, the needs remain the same, and that these you can observe that there is continuity in the needs.
Mm.
Um, I have this similar question for Marta, as
Yeah.
you are working for Acción Cultural Española, and I have in mind particularly the PISA grants that have been
Yes,
so instrumental for so many players. And I
sure.
was wondering, in these program, which is a mobility program, do
Huh?
you observe also, evolutions in terms of
Yeah,
needs?
sure. I was gonna answer your first question, your first question also, because it's you were talking about needs and you were talking about the difference between the needs we could have and the needs the artist or the cultural manager could have now. I was gonna say that for me, inspiration and models were crucial because as cultural manager, I mean, we didn't even have the name cultural manager at that time. I didn't have the models. I mean, museums were being built in this country, I mean, Spain, at the same time that I was developing my own profession, which didn't exist in a way. So I had a lack of models to follow, and that is why it's so crucial to give that back to the people and to show the road and to show how many ways to do it there are, right? In a way that is different from now because now we have access to the information and uh, inspiration, but also we have an access to this networking that I am was talking before. We didn't have that, but we developed and designed that, no, because there was nothing before. And following your second question, in terms of PICE and Acción Cultural is a public, it's very agency. So all the programs we developed come from the experience that I had before that it didn't exist. And that is what I wanted to give to the artists back. That is what they needed. So we have been very, very close to the artist's needs so that we could develop these public programs to them. The needs from the pizza was created in 2013, but before that there was other programs. The idea was the same, just supporting artists in international mobility. And as I said, the needs are the same. The money is less, but the needs remain the same. And to finish, I will mention that the mission is always to support the artists and the cultural managers, and very very basic.
It is basic, but it is
Listen, and give it back. It's
okay. So Laura, the question is also for you. Did you listen and give back? Uh, and
Yes, yeah, I
how
just
was
agree.
it for you?
Yeah, I think I agree to what was said. Yeah, that the needs are mostly the same. The sense of belonging in this new environment, which was called as networking or inspiration as existing models which to follow. Of course, the information is much more available than it was like 20 years ago when I started. I was now reflecting a bit on this language issues, first thinking that, oh, maybe it's nowadays easier and English as lingua franca is more dominating, but actually not. No, I don't think it's always like that, and it still remains a challenge, this multilingualism existing. And also I saw that European Union dragged attention to it and made a survey on multilingualism for mobility exactly, and I see it especially challenging for smaller countries, smaller cultures. So yeah, that's one of the things to address, and also not only language but all the maybe transcultural skills and the international and this knowledge of how to work, how to operate in this level. So yeah, that I would add to what was said already.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. And to follow up and maybe to start digging a little bit further into the supports to young and emerging artists. I was trying to scan in a way the different support programs that the three of you, Marta and Laura, you are working with, and I couldn't find a specific program for young and emerging. Usually, what I see is programs that are, supporting all sorts of artists and cultural professionals, and the young and emerging are invited and welcome to apply to the same, I would say, pot of money, and to compete with other artists and professional that might be way more experienced in a way and show better resume and long CVs and lot of experiences, etc. How do you actually deal with supporting the young and emerging generation of creatives? Laura?
Yes, yeah, yes, you're right. And since Katrina, who is our rapporteur, is also from Latvia, she can keep me accountable, and I can't really lie on this question, telling that we have some schemes which we don't have or don't which do not exist. It's true, yeah. First, I have to say that Ministry of Culture is not distributing funds itself because, of course, as a policy maker, we have this so-called arm-length body, State Culture Capital Foundation, which have a panel of experts and who assess applications. And then for mobility, yeah, it's always like it would be one scheme, which we call like creative travel or mobility projects, where, yes, Johan, you're totally right. Like the experienced professionals or the young professionals are competing with the experienced ones. Support for younger ones mostly happens in this educational level. So if we jump ahead a bit for recommendations and future plans, I would say it's really crucial to study mobility support with professional work mobility support, because it shouldn't be distinguished also on EU level. I guess sometimes we see it's very separate, Erasmus and Creative Europe, but actually these connections and this sector overlapping should be ensured there. And yes, I think still young artists have also a chance and opportunities to receive funding in our State Culture Capital Foundation. The experts themselves and the board of the fund decided just a few years ago actually to merge the mobility scheme within the regular calls for proposals for each cultural subsector. It used to be a separate support scheme, but they said they want to evaluate it in the context, because very often it's also that a project can be a larger project could involve a mobility, and then if there are like separate mobility applications, it should be looked together. We see that the rate of success rate is slightly lower now with this new approach when they are merged into the big kettle, so to say. But actually, the money that is allocated to mobility projects still remains the same, and it's not big. I calculated quickly. It was something like almost just 1% of total budget of the Our culture fund goes to individual mobility projects for outgoing mobility. And then we have also from last year, I'm very happy for that there is a new scheme for supporting creative residencies in Latvia. And that also helps to welcome foreign artists to work in Latvia. But again, you're right, like young or emerging artists are not prioritized yet there. So we look forward to Polish presidency's conclusions on the support of young and emerging artists. Our culture minister also just returned from a ministers' meeting in Warsaw 2 days ago, and I know that this document also will be followed by some policy recommendations, and it's a question to work on. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. I think thank you also for quoting the Warsaw conference. That is very important for the Polish presidency, as my colleague Marie-Lo is attending this conference, and she was texting me, a couple of facts and figures from the work of the Polish presidency to report on the realities within the EU member states. And she was saying the Polish researchers find out only 4 EU countries have specific programs for targeting, young artists, and only 7 of them have a status of artist policy that also mention young artists. So, as you said, I mean, there is room for improvement. Let's put it mildly. But maybe I ask also Marta to answer that same question, because if I remember well, PISA has different strands. I mean, also to support the incoming mobility and outgoing mobility. But I don't remember seeing a specific focus on the youth. And tell me more.
Well, we don't make that difference because we need to understand that in Spain, the culture in Spain is decentralized a lot. So all the regions have programs for young artists, and we, as I mentioned before, we listen before doing, and we know where we can manage to do something. And there are different actors in the international public policies for culture in Spain. There's the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, also the Ministry of Culture, the Instituto Cervantes, and us. So we try to manage not to do the same thing. So PICE, it's not, we don't make that difference for young or emerging artists. But also, we have this discussion here. What means being an emerging artist? I know lots of emerging artists at the age of 80. It is like it is like a status in Spain being an emerging artist. No, it doesn't mean that you are young. You can still be emerging. So we discovered that there is a lot of need to support the artists in the long term, as I mentioned before, during the whole career. So PICE doesn't make that different. We attend all of the artists. But as Laura said, we have different advisor committee for each of the programs, and we take in account, we try to be to make a balance in every up and call.
That's interesting.
I'm sorry. Also, we developed for almost 10 years already a lot of artists in residency programs internationally. So that kind of programs are more oriented to young artists. But not only. We don't like to make that difference. And I must also say specifically for women who are mothers. I, as a mother myself, I'm always trying to attend those needs. There are a lot of artist women that stop working internationally or visiting residencies or doing international projects because they don't have a support. in that level. So long-term support and trying to understand the needs. I think that sometimes we need, instead of doing boxes, to open them, no, and being more aware of the needs.
What you say is here to my music to my ears, as I coordinated a report on parenting and caregiving and international mobility. So we have on the move a report focusing on this particular issue of how artists that are parents but also caregivers can actually continue to have an international career. I will come back to you all with these particular questions around what I call transversal issues that could be artists with disabilities, artists that go through particular circumstances and needs to have a particular support. But before going there, I really would like also to give the ask the same question to Ayam, having in mind that I mean we with Marta and with Laura, we touch upon a very European experience, which is of course, we have national and local mobility programs or support programs that incorporate cross-border mobility, but also we have European support programs I mean, you were quoting Erasmus Plus, which is a very interesting and powerful program, but also Culture Moves Europe, the European platforms, cooperation progress that support so many mobility opportunities. But we try also to see the point of view of artists and culture professionals that are not based in Europe or in the creative Europe countries and see what are their specific challenges. To answer this question, I guess you have a particular openness, or you have in mind practical examples of artists that have gone through the process of joining, or moving, being relocated in Europe, but probably some that are still navigating in the Arab region, in Egypt and other countries. So maybe Ayam, you can provide your own perspective on this question.
Okay, so yeah, this is a long question actually. I'm trying to find out what what I have to answer exactly. I will go with the I will start with the artist with the specific needs or artists with the disabilities. So in Ettijahat, we are keen on being flexible with artists with the disabilities. We encourage them to, we take into consideration their conditions and how they can how the specific condition to their works. But this program, Zad, it's too young program. We didn't receive yet any applications from artists with disabilities, but we are very flexible with artists with the specific needs, like what Marta mentioned, with a single mother or single father, when they need to travel to showcase or to present their artistic production. So that program provide support to cover this. So we provide we cover the cost of child care for the single parents when they traveling to showcase their artistic work. This is for this point exactly. But based on my experience working with exiled artists during the last decade, yeah, I think we to address to their needs, you have to design a specific program. For example, before when we designed ZAD, we tried to understand We studied the existed mobility program for artists in Europe and artists in the Arab region. So there are very important and great programs like Ettijahat by Culture Resources and Fannak Fund, Roberto Cimita, which support artists to travel between Europe and the Middle East or the Arab region, or to support them to travel within the Arab region. But none of them support the travel for exiled artists to travel within the Europe. So there is a special need here for this reason. So we studied this and we came up with ZAD, which designed to support this artist exactly to travel within Europe.
What's interesting
I
when
answered you
you,
or not?
yes, absolutely. What you highlight also is how it's in a way you are making tailor-made program for a particular community. So instead of adopting a more all-encompassing program, you are proposing the opposite strategy to try to target the niche that is, in a way, not taken enough into account in more transversal programs or into what's existing today. What is interesting also is and maybe this is something that we should be in a way talking more about when we talk about programs dedicated or focusing more, supporting more the young artist. Maybe we are talking about also a niche or a particular segment. I'm not sure it's niche, but it's quite particular, as they are the one graduating from, art schools or the conservatoire, the drama schools, etc., and face the harsh reality of trying to transition into a professional life, and very often an international professional life, because they don't have much choice. Um, in many countries, as we know, inside and outside of Europe, the international dimension is a must go. You cannot stay in your own country because there's sometimes and very often not enough opportunities. So you need to embrace this international trajectory. So when you have an artistic background, education or cultural management education, you are in a way forced into the roads of Europe and the world to make a living. And it is a particular moment in the life of young uh, professionals with very few networks. And I guess the three of you mentioned these networks, but also very few opportunities yet and knowledge, yes. So I'm wondering what would be your propositions, the three of you, to particular take into account these difficulties of these young your recommendation to help them.
Can I start?
Yes, sure.
Okay. I think to support young or emerging artists when there is no specific program designed for them. So the mobility grants or the mobility support or framework is open for all artists, even for advanced artists. So to support emerging artists here, we have to cover not only the transportation, we have to cover another things, like for example, accommodation, because young and emerging artists, they don't have enough opportunity to be featured on the like big festivals or culture spaces with a huge budget that they can cover everything. So they start usually with a very tiny small festival somewhere and very small culture spaces where they can't cover accommodation, for example. So when our program can cover accommodation, will encourage these small festivals to invite more young artists and cover their and feature them and their so this is give them more opportunities if the mobility program can cover more than just transportation, like daily expenses, insurance, shipment, something like that. So this is give them more opportunity to be featured somewhere where there is not enough budget, because they need to be advanced in their career to have this opportunity to be in the grand festival or something like this, where all the costs can be covered.
Okay, that's a very good proposal. Make more cost eligible to the mobility grants, like to answer the needs to sometimes or the reality that young artists sometimes reach to opportunities that are not the most well funded themselves, and they like to take into account the reality of the ecosystem. That's a very good proposal. Thank you. Yes, Marta.
Well, I wanted to make I'm not sure that I explained that PICE, our mobility program, includes all these items. You can apply for mobility, but we understand mobility comes with accommodation, comes with per diem, sometimes covers part of the production cost. So it depends on the project, but you can ask for all these questions to the program. So we call this mobility program, but it's not only a mobility program. But on answering to your question, what would I suggest? Of course, I would like to have a specific program for young artists. That would mean we could share more money with them. We don't have it now. But as you mentioned before, I teach a lot at the university and many professional masters, and I always recommend them to apply for residencies. I think that is the way in which they can not only learn but share their work with other artists, not only curators or managers or professionals, but other artists. For me, that's the key point of the internationalization. That would be my special contribution. No? That is the way that would help us.
Yeah, very good, very good. Also, the focus on residencies, and that's also a very interesting point. Laura,
Yeah,
what would you
if I can-
suggest?
When thinking of graduating artists entering this wild labor market of arts industries, I think of our art and music and culture academies in Latvia, and then I see a very important this role of a mentor, or who's not only your like teacher, but sometimes a trust person for young artists, or some kind of teacher in a wider or bigger sense, like this, the one who gives further his knowledge. And for some art fields, it's actually a must to spend some time with some experienced colleagues before you start your study process. I see that, as we discussed before, the information is all the time available, but I have seen how people in art academy, for instance, are working in Latvia. The professors, they have this list of international opportunities of mobility. Opportunities, and I see they take their phones, they call their students, they see, oh, I see this place is especially for you, for your like character, for your artistic choice, that will be perfect for you. And sometimes this young person, I see that the thing she or he needs is this encouragement or this little direction to point to, and therefore, yeah, I see that it's functioning pretty well in our higher education, these schools, this role of mentor, which is not always professor, sometimes just experienced arts professional who helps somehow to navigate in this, which seems confusing for young people.
Oh, thank you. That's also very, very good advice and a good suggestions is how we can, in our structures, and I would say even I would dare to propose even in our funding application processes, how we can involve more experienced professionals, artists or arts managers to mentor or guide the young artist, even at this application stage. Because as you were mentioning, Laura, I mean, we always found ourselves facing a mountain of information. I mean, we talked at the beginning that in years ago the information was not available, and suddenly, thanks to the internet and the multiplication of opportunities, we face an overload almost of information. So sometimes the guidance is needed also to navigate this flow of information. And I would say even to apply, I mean to apply to residencies or to apply to a mobility grant is not a given. And we need to be able to rely on colleagues and friends. So maybe this is a recommendation also for you as funders, like how we could embed this kind of structure, mentoring structures or peer structures to make sure that the ones that are less familiar in general to the funding schemes and have trouble understanding the questions and answering them and posting the information, etc., can actually also apply. But this is me talking, and maybe this is the moment we need to have the participants joining this conversation. So, of course, and this is exactly why we have a meeting mode on Zoom instead of having a conference mode on Zoom. It's to be able to see the participants and hear them and make sure that we can engage in conversation. So if you have questions, don't hesitate to raise your digital hand. And I will just check in the chat if some of you posted some questions. And I think there is one actually from Taiwo or Yudun. I'm not sure I'm saying the name right, but if you want to take the floor to share your question or your comment, um, otherwise I can read it. Well, maybe I read it.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
yes,
can.
you go. Yes, of
Okay.
course.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear
Okay.
you.
So, I just say a few things before asking my questions.
Yeah.
So, I am a Nigerian artist based in Berlin, and I always find it very hard to find possibilities for funding to connect with, for example, artists or to connect with my institution or my art organization in Nigeria. And one of the questions I always ask is if there are, even when I check mobility funding, it's really rare to find something like this that gives such possibilities for such integration. So that's why I'm asking if this kind of, so I imagine if people with my own kind of background are considered in the structures of funding, because I also realized that actually considering Nigeria, institutions who always get the money, which is also one of the things that you have been talking about all the time. And it's always very hard for the small institutions or the organizations to prove their worth or the worth of their work, and because they have to compete with institutions with facilities, etc., etc. So I want to know if such institutions and organizations or such people like me are considered into funding. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, I think you put the fingers on several issues. One of them is the computation aspect, which is a real thing. I mean, the big players compete with the small one. And I guess this is something that is that applies in every context, unfortunately, because the funds are limited. So I don't know if our panelists want to address these specific issues. But we also touch upon the intercontinental cultural projects. So the idea or the perspectives of fundraising to support transcontinental partnerships and making sure that not only I would say global north, global now, south partnerships can take place, and this dialogue, cultural dialogue, can actually happen. But also, and this is maybe another layer, is how to make sure that the diaspora, artistic and cultural diasporas, are keeping and maintaining cultural relationships through cross-border projects and nourish an international cultural dialogue. I don't know how far your, I mean, for Ayan, it is a bit complicated, maybe, in terms of the funding for intercontinental relations. But I'm wondering for both Marta and Laura, how I mean, do you have in mind the percentage of the grants and the funding that goes to intercontinental relations? So, artists and cultural managers that submit projects to be taking place outside of Europe, for example. Do you have an idea? Is it a very small percentage, occasional, marginal, or is it a regular practice? Marta?
For us, it's a regular practice,
Mhm.
especially with Latin America. I mean, there is a huge connection, and we not only support Spanish artists, but also I mean, every artist based in Spain, and we do have a lot of Latin American artists based in Spain. So the connection is it's very, very usual. We have a lot of applications there.
That's very interesting. For you, Laura?
Marta, do you have a kind of quota?
No,
Okay.
that is our quota is the money. I mean, our quota is the budget.
Okay.
That's sometimes we need to discuss this in every jury and try and fix the money in order to support all of them. But yeah, the quota is the money,
Okay. Very
unfortunately.
clear.
Yeah, I
And
wouldn't know the statistics and data. I'd say the support is regular for also for projects outside Europe, but the amount is small, rather small. Although I was in contact chatting today exactly with two choreography professionals from Latvia on their way to Taipei to present Baltic Dance Platform there, and some other cultural organizations are preparing preparing culture program for Osaka Expo. So I just like the latest news I've heard are more Asia focused, but just that might be just coincidence. But the support is ongoing. But of course, as all our culture budget is rather limited, then this part would be even tinier.
thank you. But that's interesting to see that for me, there's no geographical limitation in a way in the national funding that you can manage, and there's no criteria saying, oh, your project is happening outside of Europe, so we cannot fund. And I have the feeling, on the contrary, many funders' mindset, this is a normal practice to be able to support projects that would take place in Africa, in South America, in Southeast Asia, etc. Maybe, Taiwo, I can recommend you to also visit the website of the mobility info points in Germany called Touring Artist. Maybe this is a website you will be very familiar with, but they have a database of mobility funding programs. And it's a very comprehensive database where they showcase at different levels of funding, private, public, local, regional, or provincial. So you have quite a lot of opportunities that are listed there. And also, and this is something that we started to do a couple of years ago at On the Move, is when we publish a cultural mobility funding guide, and we are preparing one at the moment with my colleague Claire on the Nordic Baltic region. We tend to include a first big international chapter where we encourage all the artists and cultural professionals and their organization to check international funding sources that would cover the countries in region. So I don't know if we have other questions or other comments in the group. And see, there is one maybe here. Roberto, do you want to take the floor and share your questions? If not, I can always read. So Roberto is saying, thank you for all these beautiful interventions. I find the proposal super interesting, especially the fact of really creating special mobility programs for young emerging artists that don't force them to compete with professionals. My question particularly concerned African artists. How can these young people benefit from these mobility programs to carry out projects in Europe to which they are invited? But the issues of tickets, insurance, living expenses prevent these artists from traveling at all. My proposal would perhaps be to support the creation of specific mobility program for young emerging artists that covers a little more of the cost, but with branches for each continent, because the notion of emerging artists in Europe and Africa doesn't absolutely mean the same thing. Well, thank you for your contribution and question, Roberto. Maybe this is the idea of covering what we call incoming mobility. So the idea of supporting the cost for artists and creatives outside of our own context and making sure that they can apply to this funding and benefit from funding that would accompany an invitation to a country is something that has been described. I feel that both PISA with their programs, sub-programs, but also the operational support that Laura, the ministry, I mean the agency is providing, allows for cultural organization, to actually invite whoever they want, including, of course, artists from the African continent. Do you have comments on your side or suggestions? I don't know, Eya, Marta, Laura, on this?
May I? Sorry.
No, I just agree that you're right that the organization who receives funding can invite artists from everywhere.
Well, for us, it's a little bit more complicated. We can support Spanish organizations to bring international curators or programming, or must be related to someone who comes and see the context and gets to know the context, and afterwards these people could maybe program Spanish artists abroad. Do you understand the difference? So we are not directly allowed to bring in, now that nobody listens, we found a way in which we could do that, because we know how that could enrich our own context and artist experience. So we found a way to do that, and that is by supporting Spanish artists in residency program so that they can bring artists here. That is the only way we could find to support other international artists to come to Spain. But if not, PICE is only related to artists for the mobility, for the international mobility, but for the visitor program must be curators.
Yeah, understandably. And I think, we have in mind also many examples of organization. Dutch culture, the Flemish Flanders Arts Institute in Helsinki, also in Finland, the programs for visiting curators, artistic leaders, artistic directors, managers that are in charge of putting together a program. I can see that we have a question also. Marion Ston is raising her hand. Hello, Marion.
Hello, thank you. It's really interesting to hear you all. I didn't have the video on for most of the time, so I'm not sure. Perhaps it's Marta, who lives just north of the French border. I'm not sure if I'm referring to the right speaker, but I thought it was really interesting just what this means growing up close to a border where there's inherent porosity and mobility. I live in France now, but I'm from the United States, and borders function very differently there. And I guess my question is, I'm really curious about slow mobility practices and spending longer durations in fewer places, traveling not as far, and like the most amazing and most rich and interesting residency I had recently was in Catalonia. And we took a bus and it took a while, and we had green top-ups from the Goethe mobility grant, and it took a long time, and it became a part of the whole project, actually. And I guess I'm just curious, anybody's thoughts, affirmative thoughts or suggestions around slow mobility, and if there are funding sources you could direct me to, knowing that I live on the inset in the south of France. Thank you.
Thank you, Mario, for your question. I think you raise a very important aspect of mobility that it is part of what I call the transversal issues that many or more and more funders are encouraged to tackle. So we were talking about artists with disabilities, but the green incentives or how to green the modes of transportation is something that is quite big, at least in the conversation, not always in the practice, but in the conversation. I don't know, Marta, do you have practices that you'd like to
We
share?
do. Yes,
Yeah.
and I totally agree with you, Marion. And it's kind of, we're talking about mobility, and in a way I feel bad because we're talking about mobility all the time, but at the same time finding ways to do it in a more logical and ecological way, right? So we do establish in our mobility programs, we do support those projects that are based on slow mobility, and also we do evaluate carbon print and also the mobility by train if possible. So we take that in consideration. And again, we've been working in programs. I've been working personally in mobility programs for the last 20 years, but I found I discovered that the word residency applies to everything. So it's a way I can sell everything here, right? So for me, residency it's a slow mobility idea. It's what you just say that you did in Catalonia, and more and more we are just so many projects in festival or exhibition projects, right? Because we are keeping the money from transportation and giving that for the artists to have time, to have the moment to think and to create. And basically, we are supporting time to stop and to reflect. And I think that is what is demanded and needed now. So I think your question was very appropriate, Marian, in a mobility forum.
Well, thank you for this answer. Maybe I'm aware of the time, and I know that Marta, you need to run to a meeting at the Ministry of Culture.
I'm so sorry, but I need to leave.
So thank you very much, Marta.
Thank
and
you.
I think maybe it's time for me also to thank colleague Laura and I am for their contribution and for the openness also in sharing their thoughts and practice. And I will now give the floor to Katrina, because Katrina, you've been very silent until now. You followed the conversation, and I think it would be good to give you the floor so you can, in a way, share with us what you thought. What are the words and ideas that you keep from today?
Thank you all. Goodbye. Sorry, Katrina.
Yes, Marta can watch the recap on YouTube. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining, and I'm very happy to be here. Firstly, I will just describe myself. I'm a white woman in my early 30s. I have dark brown hair, and today you only can see my signature fringe that ends around the place where my eyebrows start. Johan already gave an introduction about the many roles I take in my everyday, but just to throw a couple of more in there, I am a creative producer, firstly, and secondly, I'm still an emerging artist and researcher. And I've been also working independently as an artist. I'm also connected to the Latvian Culture Academy as recently as a research assistant, working with artistic research projects. And lastly, I've been also together with Riga Circus for the past 8 months, working on international projects that mainly involve also bringing in artists and working with them, also together with local participants. And I think it makes more sense for me to firstly also answer the question that the speakers were answering in the very beginning, the question of how I got into international working, because I think it will also make more sense when I go into the main takeaways I have. As most culture professionals, I also studied at the Latvian Academy of Culture. And within there, I did have a wonderful mentor who really guided me into this international work with introducing to me Homo Novus Festival. So I started as an intern working with international artists coming in. And I did also take the opportunity to go study during an Erasmus, 2 semesters actually, in Czech Republic. And afterwards, I also did my master's in the Netherlands. So during these times when I've both worked with international artists and traveled for education, I have slowly also created a little network that over time has expanded. And to go into my first takeaway, which I defined as artist needs, I think this was the main thing I heard, and it also made me as an emerging artist very happy that still the artist is in the center and their needs is in the center when thinking about mobility. Because as I already mentioned, I did have a wonderful mentor, but I've actually experienced in my education process only one person who had the capacity and knowledge how to be a mentor. And in that sense, it was very lucky situation that our interests also align, because I've always said I represent more the contemporary theater performance sphere, and it's not that common if we look at the theater scene in Latvia together. Another important thing that I heard was the long-term aspect. The opportunities, usually they have been short-term, up to 2 weeks, but I think something that really helps build a young artist and their career is really the long-term trust. I've been also quite lucky to receive funding from the State Capital Culture Foundation, a yearly grant. And it's not a grant that is just for emerging artists. Everyone, emerging and established artists, are fighting for the same money pot. And in my application, in my yearly plan, I already put in that I have these ambitions for international collaboration. So this was also a funding I found, and I tried to make it into a mobility and networking opportunity for myself. Another thing I really heard and appreciated was the talk about also specific needs, especially for women artists, artists with families and children, artists with disabilities. For example, one of my first residencies was in Denmark, in the island of Bornholm, and it was a residency specifically tailored for female artists or artists who identify as women. So I've also had this very lucky opportunity to be in a very specific residency. Talking about residencies and local and international artists, it's true that Laura already mentioned there aren't any specific programs for residencies for local artists. However, also when I have been working as a creative producer and working specifically with European projects and also residency programs, we have always put an important emphasis on the local artist engagement. For example, if there is a foreign artist coming in, working either alone or with the community, then we have always tried to incorporate some collaboration or just meeting and visiting local artists in hope that would foster some kind of future collaboration. The second takeaway is connecting education. In my studies in Latvia, I have both taken part and being a co-creator of some programs, also funded by the Creative Europe programs for students already participating in some international collaborations. For example, we had in the academy a summer school, so there were several schools coming into one event, and the students could work together. However, this hasn't been a part of the curricula or the school policy in general. So this was again luck that this program even came to be. And at least for short-term students also have the possibility to work internationally. However, there were no follow-ups because the system, how to support them further, was not then yet developed. And again, you need to reapply to different fundings or find different opportunities. Even if you find a artist you would like to collaborate, it's quite difficult because you are still in school and there are no systems that could help you to continue this kind of collaboration. And also the transition from a student into a professional working internationally has been challenging. For if I look at my own trajectory or if I look at my course mates, because my success is really connected to luck and getting to meet these people in different kind of situations where I have had the opportunity to meet other people internationally. However, there isn't really a system that would encourage or sustain these kinds of practices. And the last part, I would call it policy. I think from a emerging artist perspective, there could be more opportunities really created on a national level to really support not only the entering of professional workspace locally, but as well as internationally. One thing I have really noticed with my peers is that it starts actually at a very basic level. A lot of artists do not know how to write application forms, even if there aren't opportunities for local Also, if you want to apply for, I don't know, Baltic-Nordic mobility, for Culture Moves Europe, or other initiatives, there is some kind of missing link in between that would help these artists to at least write these applications. I will go quickly through my notes and see if there's something I have missed. Yeah, just to add, I also heard the very good initiative about how to support starting small, because I myself, I am still working quite small. And as Johan mentioned, I'm right now in Turku in a Baltic Takeover Festival that is organized by the 3 Baltic countries specifically to take the young emerging artists from the contemporary performance scene and to take them to Finland to start showcasing their work internationally and creating new networks. So as an artist, I really, really support this initiative, even if it's a small festival, limited budget, but if there are possibilities to cover a travel, accommodation, and per diem, that already actually gives quite a lot of boost. And I think I am perfectly on 10 minutes.
Thank you so much, Katrina. You're perfectly on 10 minutes, but you're also perfectly into providing great insights and great takeaways from this conversation. I think, I mean, you summarized and put your fingers on many of the points that we could spend another 2 hours delving into. Thank you so much, and I would say I'm now very eager to continue the conversation, not only online but also in Riga with the Cultural Mobility Forum focusing on young and emerging creatives. So look, I'm gonna thank again all the panelists. Laura, Marta, who had to leave, and you, Katrina. And I'm going to thank also my 2 colleagues, Claire and Bernardo, who were very good at posting links on in the chat and reacting and channeling information resources published by On the Move or colleague organization. So I'm going to finish close this panel discussion with 2 information. The first one is the next pre-forum webinar will be on the 23rd of April. So if you want to follow that conversation, don't hesitate to visit the web page, register. It will be again a Zoom format. A 90-minute conversation, and it will be focusing on 2 key publications that we worked on. The first one is the Cultural Mobility Yearbook 2025 on the Move, where my colleague Claire analyzed more than 600 open calls, international calls for mobility, and came with many takeaways again on the latest trends for international mobility. But also having a specific focus on the mobility of young and emerging creatives. And the second publication is the one that I mentioned already, is the Cultural Mobility Funding Guide, focusing on the Nordic Baltic region. So we are working very hard on this one, and hopefully in next week we will be publishing it. So it will be also together with some of the researchers that contributed to the mapping exercise of all the funds that are available for artists. It will be an opportunity to dig a little bit into what are the difficulties to support international projects, but also what are the features, including the one that we mentioned today, around parenting, around supporting artists with disabilities, about the greener modes of transportation and other environmental sustainability features. So we will delve into, the money issue again, but from another perspective. Let's put it this way. So you're warmly invited to join that conversation, of course, and to follow the forum. Again, don't hesitate to register. There will be the forum will be live streamed, and you're warmly welcome to follow all the conversation. So thank you very much for today. Thank you to our speakers and On the Move staff, and be in touch.